I'm Shelly Turner with the BUILDERALL team. In this video, we're going to learn all about buttons and how to configure them in the Cheetah Builder. So let's go ahead and create a blank layer. So I'm going to go to Add Panel and Blank Panel, and it added it to the bottom of my page. And I'm going to go ahead and work in this blank panel to work with buttons. So I'm going to go into Add and then Element, and we're going to choose Buttons right here. And here's all of the different styles of buttons that we have. There's a whole lot of different styles. You can choose any one that you want to work with. Choose one that's close to the style that you want, then you won't have to do as much editing. But we're just going to choose this very first one, and I'm going to click and drag it over to this panel. It doesn't look like I've dragged it, but if I drop it, you'll see that the button will appear. So now I've got a couple of things that I can do with this button right off the bat. I'm going to left click it, and I'm going to make it a little bit bigger so I can work with it a little bit bigger. And then I want to show you this mini toolbar that appears when you left click it. So in the mini toolbar, we've got an icon. If we click it, we'll center it in the panel. The next icon is an action icon. So what actions are going to happen if this button is clicked by the user? So if I click that action, it actually opens up a new window for me where I can configure what's going to happen with this button. So I've got several choices. When they click this button, do we want a new website opened? If so, then you put in the URL of the website, and then you can force it to open on the same page or open in a new page, and the page that they're on stays open and available. You can also choose as an action for it to open a page in your website. So you just click on the page that you want it to open, and then you can choose the target of opening in the same page or opening in a new page. You can also choose pop-up. So if you've created a pop-up, if they click on this button, it will open that pop-up. You can also choose anchor point. So if you've created an anchor point in your website, when they click on the button, it will take them to that anchor point. You can also choose video, and if you choose video, you put the URL in of the video. When they click the button, it will actually open the video in a little pop-up, and they can watch the video from there. Once you've configured the action, you can also choose to hide the button. So if you click hide, it will disappear from your editor, and it will not appear in the live site. But if you choose show hidden elements, you can see that I've got the button here. When I hover over it, it will show me what it's going to look like if I put it back. And then if I click the eyeball, it will put it back for me. And then I can get rid of that sidebar by clicking show hidden elements again, and I'm back to editing. If I click on the button again and look at my mini toolbar, I also have the ability to duplicate the button. So I just hit duplicate, and it creates a whole nother copy. And then if I click on this item, I've got one more tool on my mini toolbar, and that is the trash can. If I click the trash can, it will delete the item. Then it asks me to confirm by clicking that's fine. And now that item is gone, and I have the original one that I kept there. So that is the mini toolbar. To get that, you just click on the item, and that will give you the mini toolbar. But now I want to go to configure my button to make it look exactly how I want it to look. To do that, I'm going to right click on the button, and that opens up my style settings. And in here, I can start working on how my button looks. So the first area is background. So I can start to configure what my background looks like on my button. Right now, it's a blue color. So let's go ahead and click to change that. And it opens up this color palette, and I can start choosing how I want my button to look. So let's go ahead and change it to yellow that sort of kind of matches this website. So I'll drag it around a little bit. There we go. And so now I've changed the background color to yellow. And then there's a hover color. So let's go ahead and click on the hover color, and I'll choose a similar but not quite the same color, maybe a little bit darker, just like that. Once I get the color that I want, I click that bar again, and it takes the color palette away. I can also choose to add an image to the button instead of just a color. And if I click search, it will go into my digital file repository, and I can choose an image to add to the button. If I don't like the image, I can also click delete, and it will go back to the colors that you set up for it. I can choose to add a border around my button, and right now it's set to 1, but no style of border. So I can change that to maybe a bigger number, and then I could do a solid line. And right now the color is set to red. I can change that to any color I want using the color palette. And as you can see, I've now got a yellow button with a black border. If I don't want any border at all, I just set the border size to 0 and there is no border. And then I can get rid of that color palette by clicking the color bar. The next item is radius. If I click that, I can add rounded corners to my button. So I'm going to go ahead and click and change it to 25. And now you can see that all of my corners are rounded. If I wanted to do something a little different, I could actually change the settings to maybe a round on each corner, and then a couple of the corners not rounded. So as you can see, I changed it to these two corners are rounded, and then these two corners are square. So you can change the style of the button using those border radiuses however you want to. Remember to right-click your item to activate it, so everything you do on this side panel gets changed on your item. So the next area is button headline. If I click that, this is the first line of text that's on the button. So we'll just keep it to register now with an exclamation point, and then I'm going to go ahead and make the text a little bit bigger because it's quite small. And then I can choose to bold it, italicize it, underline it, whatever I want to do as far as designing that text. And I can also change the color. Right now the color is white. Here's my color palette. I can change it to whatever color I want. Then once I get it there, I click that color bar again and it takes the palette away. I can also add an icon. So if I click this show list icon, it's going to open up a window that shows me several different icons that I can use. And all I need to do is pick the icon that I want. Now I've narrowed this down by arrow. If I take that out and do a search with an empty filter search bar, it's going to show me all of the icons that I have. And there's a lot of them. So if you're not sure which one you want to use and you have an idea of the shape that you want, maybe you want to add a clock, we can type the word clock in and then do a search and see if any clock icons show up that we can use. And there's several different ones we can use. So let's go ahead and click this one here and then click select, and it actually adds it onto the button. And now we can align that icon to the left or to the right. I'm going to actually align it to the left, and then I'm going to go ahead and actually create a space between the icon and my letters to just space it out a little bit more. So the next item that I have is the button subheadline. If I click there, I can add subtext, which is a second line on my button. So I'm going to add a little bit of text there. So I typed in limited spots available, and you can see that it's really tiny. So I can also change the font style, including the size. So I'm going to just bump it up a little bit to change the size, and then we'll make sure that it's centered as well. So now I've got 2 lines of text on my button, and the last item is the shadow. So I can click here to add a shadow to my button. And I've got a lot of capability. The first thing I want to do though is set the color to make sure that the color is right. So I'm going to right click my button, go to color, and I'm going to make the shadow a light gray color. So we'll set it to there. And now I can start configuring my shadow. So I'm going to set the horizontal like that, the vertical like that. So it's showing right here and right here. Then I'm going to blur it a little bit so it's not so harsh. There we go. And then I can actually change the size of it too if I want to, all the way around, but I don't want to. I just want it on that right side and on the bottom. And then once I get it configured the way I want and the color's okay, I can click the color and that will get rid of the color palette. And now I've got a shadow that kind of makes that button pop out a little bit. But I could also change that shadow to, instead of being outside of the button, to be inside of the button. So if I right click on there and then choose inset, it actually changes the shadow to be on the inside of the button, which kind of creates almost a beveled look. But with this button, it doesn't work as well. So I'm going to right click it to activate it and then uncheck insert so that it's not on the inside of the button. The shadow is on the outside of the button. Those are all the things that I can do with this button in the style settings. The next area I have is animation. And this allows me to animate the button so that it does some kind of action on the page. And the animation can be activated by time, when it becomes visible on the page, if someone clicks on it, or if someone hovers over it. And then you have the chance to set the start time if it's on a timer. So you can set it so that the page loads, and maybe 5 seconds after the page loads, you have some type of animation that happens. So we're going to go ahead and set this for 2 seconds, and then we'll set it for 5 seconds. And then the next item is to choose the effect. There are a lot of effects here. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and choose the swing effect. And then we can choose the speed that that effect happens. So we can choose slow, slower, fast, or faster. I'm going to go ahead and choose fast. And then I can choose infinite, meaning once it's set to start animation, it keeps doing that animation. It doesn't stop. So you can set it to infinite. And now let's go ahead and preview and see what happens to our button. And remember, we set it for time, 5 seconds to start. It's going to swing, and it's going to happen fast. So let's look at preview and see what happens. So I'm going to preview my screen. There's my button. And we'll wait 5 seconds for it to get animated. And there it goes. So that was the animation. You can also see when I hover over it, the color change because of the hover color that I set up for this button. So I'm going to click and go back to the editor. And those are our animation settings. The last area that we'll look at in desktop view is advanced. And in this area, we can work with the layer settings so that elements can be layered one on top of the other. And then also save elements. So you can actually right-click this element to activate it, go to advanced, name the element, and click save. And it will save it in your personal area so you can use this element again on another page or even in another website in the same account. So those are all the things that you can do with the button inside of the desktop view. Now let's take a look at mobile view. And if I scroll down, I'll find my button. There's my button right there. And on the button, I have the small toolbar, the mini toolbar, where I can click to set up the action on the button. I can hide the button, or I can click the up and down arrow to move it inside of this mobile version. So if I wanted the button to be a little bit higher, I could actually move it to a little bit higher position inside of this mobile version. Then if I right-click this item, it takes me to the style area, but I want you to remember that anything I change in the style area is going to change the desktop version too. So if I want to change only what's happening in the mobile, I need to go to the advanced area. And there's only a few things I can do in the advanced area that I can only change on mobile. And that is the padding that I have available. And this is the spacing that's available inside of the mobile view. So on the left-hand side, if I increase that, it's going to move the button over. If I decrease it, it's going to increase the size of the button. On the right-hand side, if I increase, it increases the space on the right-hand side of the button and makes the button smaller. Or I can decrease it and make the button bigger. Then we've also got space on the top to either increase or decrease, and space on the bottom to either increase or decrease. So those are the only settings that you have available to make changes on your mobile version. So if you get a button that doesn't fit what you want for your mobile and you can't change it because it's going to change the desktop, then the answer is to click on it to get your mini toolbar and then click hide and then create a new element for your mobile view to make it look exactly like you want it to look like in mobile. All right, I'm going to go back to desktop, and we have covered everything that you need to know about buttons inside of your editor. So have fun creating something amazing with Cheetah.